Hello, I'm Dennis Smith. Welcome to Exposures. There were so many memorable weather events between 1993 and 94, it's nearly impossible to review each and every one. But among the most significant in 93 were the March blizzard and the Mississippi River floods. 1994 brought a record number of tornadoes and devastating fires in the West. Stay with us now for the 93 and 94 years in review.
1993 was a year of blizzards, hurricanes, flooding, and devastating fires. Our look at that year begins with a winter storm that was felt from Cuba to Canada. The storm struck in March, beginning as a line of intense thunderstorms in the Gulf states. It later grew to blizzard strength, leaving whole areas of the east paralyzed.
The winter storm of March 93 began as rain, thunder, snow, and sleet across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. By storm's end, 250 people were dead, and the storm's impact was felt from Cuba to Canada. Earlier in the week, forecasters started to identify the ingredients that would create this massive storm. The first, a very big late-season Arctic outbreak plunging across the United States. Secondly, the warm, humid air in place over the Gulf of Mexico, Florida, and the Gulf Stream. Last but not least, a very big dip in the jet stream, coupled with disturbances aloft, helped carve out immense clusters of thunderstorms. By Friday, the winds in the Gulf of Mexico had increased to hurricane force. Water began to batter the coastline of northwest Florida. By early morning, the storm surge reached 10 feet in places. The beach communities of Taylor and Dixie counties were awash in water. Waves and debris crushed homes, tossed cars, and destroyed lives. 500 structures were destroyed, another 500 damaged. Other areas in the state were pounded by a tremendous line of thunderstorms, which brought down trees and power lines from Tallahassee to West Palm Beach. The center of the storm howled northward into the southeastern states. By early Saturday morning, the storm reached blizzard strength. Impassable roads left motorists stranded. Snow and vicious winds closed down entire cities. Birmingham, Alabama reported 13 inches of snow, and some Atlanta suburbs had 10. Property damage was immense. Buildings collapsed under the weight of the snow. Hundreds of hikers in the Smoky Mountains had to be rescued as the blizzard moved in. 300 miles away, fierce winds crashed into the entire length of the Carolina coast. As the storm moved to the northeast, the tremendous snows continued. Pittsburgh measured 24 inches, and even areas accustomed to winter storms had record snows. Syracuse reported 43 inches. Airports were closed down all along the eastern seaboard. Roads were jammed with jackknife trucks and abandoned cars. Whole areas were paralyzed. By the time the storm was done, 26 states had been hit and 50% of the nation's population affected. A truly memorable event for those who experienced the March storm of 1993.
By summer, communities in the Midwest were fighting to survive flooding. Persistent thunderstorms dumped up to 30 inches of rain in some areas. By summer's end, the flooding was blamed for the deaths of more than 48 people and caused millions of dollars damage.
By midsummer, the Great Flood of '93 covered large areas of the Midwest. But rivers had started to seep into towns as early as May in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. The heavy spring rains continued into summer, and the flooding spread south. Davenport, Iowa, without the protection of flood walls, was claimed by the mighty river. All along the banks of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, the fight for survival was carried out in community after community. Thousands of volunteers filled sandbags and rebuilt levees.
Everybody's been just wonderful. We've had people out here that don't even live out here sandbagging and really putting their hearts into it, and it kind of helps. It doesn't take away the hurt.
But the water kept on coming. Small river towns were swallowed up. Over 54,000 people were forced to evacuate and leave behind homes and belongings.
This is terrible. I just wish this was over with. I didn't want to cry. It's just horrible.
The rain lasted for most of the summer. The reason? The jet stream during a normal summer is positioned in Canada. But during June and July, the weather pattern became stagnant across the nation. The jet stream took a strong dip across the northwest and northern plains. A strong Bermuda high was established over the southeastern states. The dip in the jet stream allowed unseasonably cool air into the northern areas of the U.S. The strong Bermuda high pumped up moisture and warm air into the central U.S. The convergence of cool air and warm air created ideal conditions for the heavy, repeating rains in the central plains and the Midwest. The rains led to massive flooding, and the floods in turn caused economic havoc. All river traffic was halted from St. Paul to St. Louis. Thousands of acres of farmland were flooded and crops ruined. Rainfall amounts for the area were staggering. Skidmore, Missouri received over 25 inches of rain, while Worth County reported nearly 30. The human tragedy was immense. Over 48 people lost their lives, and damage was estimated at $10 to $12 billion. The long-term prospects for the river areas are not good, as the ground is saturated and spring rains could lead to a new round of flooding.
The '93 hurricane season was busy and deadly. 8 named storms developed between June and September, killing 280 people. The first in line was Arlene.
The 1993 Atlantic hurricane season had only 8 named storms. In an average year, there are 10. The first storm of the year developed on June 18th and was Tropical Storm Arlene. The storm caused heavy flooding in Mexico, coastal Texas, western Louisiana, and Arkansas. 6 people were killed, and damage was estimated at over $22 million. Tropical Storm Brett formed in the Atlantic east of the Windward Islands. Winds and heavy rain led to extensive flooding and mudslides around Caracas, Venezuela. 184 people died from Brett. Tropical storms Cindy and Dennis did not affect the U.S. mainland. Emily was the only major hurricane of the season. It formed in the same location as Hurricane Andrew, so the storm caused anxiety along the eastern coastline. The storm approached the Outer Banks of North Carolina with winds of up to 135 miles per hour. The storm did stay just east of Cape Hatteras, but residents living on the island felt the wrath of Emily.
Now, the main devastation that we had from Hurricane Emily was really caused when we got strong west winds across Pamlico Sound after the hurricane had actually moved a little bit north. And what that did, it carried some very high water into Hatteras Island, and it got 10 feet above sea level on the sound side. Now, on the ocean side, the tides were much less, only 2 to 3 feet. But the main damage there on Hatteras Island was really caused by this storm surge that came in from Pamlico Sound.
Over $35 million worth of damage was done, and 3 people lost their lives from Emily. Hurricane Gert brought heavy rain and flash flooding to the southwestern Caribbean. The storm made landfall near Tampico, Mexico. Gert killed 76 people. The last storm of the season, Harvey, stayed well out in the Atlantic. Although the '93 hurricane season will be remembered as being relatively uneventful, the storms killed 280 people and caused millions of dollars worth of damage.
Part 2 of our story, When Exposures Continued.
It's surprising but true. With Hewlett-Packard's real-life imaging system, the print quality of HP's new DeskJet 600 series printers for the home is so good that it's sometimes hard to know the difference between what's real and what's just really well printed. HP home printers. Just what you had in mind.
Ready?
My dad wants to talk to you.
Before you take my daughter out on a night like this, there's one thing I need to know.
Yes, sir?
Do you have an Exide battery in that car? You know, son, an Exide battery was Admiral Byrd's only source of power on his expedition to Antarctica.
Dad?
Ha, talk about cool. Exide.
Exide, the world leader in batteries.
January 28th, in a special live broadcast after the Super Bowl. Watch Publishers Clearinghouse surprise a new $10 million winner live as it's happening. If you enter now, the winner could be you.
Just because a glass and surface cleaner is blue like Windex doesn't mean it cleans glass as well as Windex, because only Windex is specially formulated with ammonia D. It It leaves a beautiful streak-free shine. Just about anyone can appreciate. Windex, the best on glass, from S.C. Johnson Wax.
On the face of things, Tavis D seems to cost a bit more than these cold medicines, but prices can be deceiving. See, one little 12-hour Tavis D is so effective at relieving your congestion and sneezing that to get close to the same relief, you'd have to take 4 of these, or up to 6 of these, or 6 of these. So with these guys, you could pay more than twice as much, and you don't even get continuous relief. Now, there's something to feel sick about. Prescription strength Tavis D. Relief you can count on.
Working toward the weekend? Watch The Weekend Outlook to find out what the temperatures will be and if there's a chance of rain. Only on the Weather Channel.
'93 was also a year of devastating fires and rains in California. Vigorous storms brought downpours and mudslides. But the greatest effect on human suffering was made by wildfires fueled by Santa Ana winds.
Beautiful California living, from an oceanfront view to the seclusion of canyon dwellings. It almost always comes with a big price tag.
You never can predict when the fire is going to come, but you know, you pay the price for living up here.
For 2 weeks this fall, wildfires turned Southern California into a raging inferno. One of the state's worst fire seasons to date was fueled by a summer without rain and hillsides covered with parched brush and timber. Hot, dry winds were the final ingredient needed to fuel a scene set for disaster. These winds, known as Santa Anas, are a common feature of Southern California's autumns and dangerous fire season. Santa Anas form when high pressure is situated near the Great Basin and low pressure lies over northwest Mexico. The flow of air around the high and low systems brings in air over the mountains and desert. The air picks up speed as it's funneled through the mountain passes and canyons of the San Gabriel and San Bernardino Mountains.
But we think that the Santa Ana winds will start to shift south and become even stronger as we head on through the next day or two.
The warnings went out the night of October 25th and soon became reality. 13 separate fires raged in 6 counties, from northern Ventura County to the Mexican border. Homes and hillsides looked more like war zones. The worst hit areas? Altadena and Laguna Beach. Blazes were contained as the wind subsided, but firefighters and residents did not rest easy with the prediction of another round of fierce winds in the forecast. The second outbreak ignited the following Tuesday and spread quickly from the Santa Monica Mountains toward the beaches of Malibu. Hundreds of people fled homes, jamming the 45-mile stretch of Pacific Coast Highway. Many returned not knowing what they would find. A few were more fortunate.
Right next door and not touched.
In the end, more than 200,000 acres had burned, and over 1,000 homes were either damaged or destroyed. Damage estimates totaled $1 billion plus. Over 200 people were injured, 3 were dead. Arsonists were responsible for starting more than half the fires. November's second week kicked off California's rainy season. Heavy rain sent mud, rocks, and trees cascading down hillsides stripped bare by the wildfires. As Southern Californians bid farewell to a devastating '93, they will continue to prepare for whatever nature and a new year may bring.
In the U.S., springtime can bring with it deadly tornadoes. That was certainly the case in 1994.
It's really sad. You can wake up one day and the next day you can't just because of weather.
It's a grim reminder of the power of one of nature's most deadly and destructive forces. On average, the United States is hit by more than 800 tornadoes a year. In 1994, there were slightly more than 1,000. Although tornado-related fatalities were below normal, there were more deaths this year than each of the previous 3 years. Tornadoes are rated on the Fujita scale according to their wind strength, F0 being the weakest with winds of up to 72 miles per hour. F5 tornadic winds exceed 261 miles per hour. Mother Nature unleashed one of her most destructive twisters on Palm Sunday. It was part of the largest outbreak of tornadoes in 1994. Twisters, some reaching F4 in intensity, rampaged across central Alabama and north Georgia. A tornado destroyed Goshen United Methodist Church in Piedmont, Alabama. 20 people were killed, 90 others injured. Meteorologist Stu Ostro says the elements producing the tornado started subtly, then exploded.
and the energy release which did occur was focused along a very narrow, well-defined zone which began in northern Alabama and then extended east-northeast from there.
Crossing the Georgia state line, this twister and others ravaged North Georgia. Governor Zell Miller declared 12 Georgia counties major disaster areas. On April 25th, an F4 tornado hit Lancaster, Texas, leaving $100 million in damage. Nearly 260 homes and businesses were destroyed. An amateur photographer captured this dramatic video of a twister as it came down from the sky in Gainesville, Texas on April 26th. 8 people were injured. Close to midnight that same day, a twister assaulted West Lafayette, Indiana.
It went through a trailer park, literally destroying 64 mobile homes, but the deaths that were attributed to this particular tornado were all outside the trailer parks.
In July, there were more than 150 tornadoes sighted. 3 touched down in the suburbs of Philadelphia. In the township of Limerick, 3 people were killed, 25 others injured.
Coming up, the conclusion of our story when exposures continues.
It's out there, waiting on your steps, your sidewalk, your driveway. It laughs at rock salt. It's ice. It fears only heat. Prestone introduces new driveway heat. Each concentrated pellet heats up like a furnace to melt up to 4 times more ice than rock salt with no messy residue. Put your driveway in the Prestone zone with new driveway heat and kiss your ice goodbye.
New Prestone driveway heat melts up to 4 times more ice than rock salt.
Not just any drain opener can bust through a tough clog like this. You need one with maximum power. New Drano Max. It's the thickest, with 35% more power than even Pro Strength liquids. A maximum breakthrough against your toughest clogs. Get new Drano Max and go with the flow. S.C. Johnson Wax.
What's new about the taste of apple cinnamon Cheerios?
The apples and the cinnamon taste better.
Sure, it tastes better.
It's baked in.
I taste apples.
Yeah?
It's got cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
Yes.
Brown sugar.
I taste apples, cinnamon, and brown sugar.
It's baked in.
Something else. That's something else.
Right. It's a baked in taste.
Now apple cinnamon Cheerios tastes even better because it has a baked-in apple cinnamon taste.
How do you know that?
How do you know that?
It says so on the box.
I knew that.
Presenting the Dremel Multi-Pro. You cut, Dremel cuts. You sharpen, Dremel sharpens. You polish, Dremel polishes. You drill, Dremel drills. You clean, Dremel cleans. You sand, Dremel sands. You grind, Dremel grinds. You hammer. Did I mention we cut? The Dremel Multi-Pro. With up to 30,000 RPM, it has the speed you need to power through hundreds of jobs.
The flu. You've got what it takes to overpower the pain. Or do you? Now you do. Because now there's a hot flu remedy from Alka-Seltzer Plus. New Alka-Seltzer Plus Hot Flu and Body Aches formula. The hot, soothing liquid speeds powerful medicines to your worst aches and coughs to quickly ease your pain. New Alka-Seltzer Plus Hot Flu and Body Aches formula. What flu?
Watch 1995 Year in Review this week in the WeatherScope Focus. Watch the next WeatherScope only on the Weather Channel.
While tornadoes wreaked havoc in the east, wildfires ravaged the west. During '94, at least 8 western states experienced the most intense and deadly fire season in history.
The summer of 1994 promised to be a nightmarish fire season. After weeks of scorching heat and little precipitation, agencies that deal with fires in the West were fearing the worst. As June moved into July, fires sprang up in California, Colorado, and Utah. Then, on July 8th, the agency's fears came true. Fueled by strong winds, flames surged down Storm King Mountain near Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Trapped in the fiery onslaught, 14 firefighters lost their lives, one of the worst tragedies among firefighters in the past 50 years. The fire went on to destroy more than 2,000 acres in the area. Memories of this disaster were rekindled only 2 months later. Heavy rain in the area sent a river of mud and debris down Storm King Mountain. 2 people were injured, 30 cars were captured in the mire. There was little time to dwell on the catastrophe in Colorado, though. By the end of July, another major fire complex had developed, this one in central Washington. Fires sparked by intense lightning storms spread through the Wenatchee National Forest. The inferno was fanned by gusty winds and fueled by the extremely dry vegetation in the area. Hundreds of residents were evacuated as the fire approached the town of Chelan. But the town was saved thanks to the efforts of thousands of firefighters. Nonetheless, more than 50,000 acres burned in the Wenatchee. For the year, more than 300,000 acres were burned in the state of Washington. The fires were aided by 50 days in a row without a wetting rain. Less than 1/10 of an inch of rain was recorded in July and August. Throughout the West, that was the story. In Idaho, lightning caused more than 100 fires in the Boise National Forest. 180,000 acres were burned. The Idaho fires cost $80 million to fight. Wildfires raged in other parts of the West: Cottonwood, California, Mapleton, Utah, and near Reno, Nevada. For the year, 4 million acres were burned across the United States, nearly 3.5 million in the West. The cost for putting out the fires in the U.S. totaled $925 million.
In early summer, we learned that flooding can be just as damaging and deadly as any other natural disaster. The Southeast got the brunt of this historical flooding with a tropical twist.
The Southeast's worst flooding in over a century began with a storm called Alberto. Alberto formed in late June and threatened to spoil the 4th of July weekend for many Gulf Coast residents. The storm made landfall near Destin, Florida on the morning of July 3rd.
It has just been incredible here for the past hour or so, and here we take a look out over the Gulf of Mexico. And
winds subsided quickly. Damage was minimal, and a beautiful sunset painted a picture of calm after the storm.
Tropical storm Alberto, while weakening, may be affecting our weather for the next several days to come.
Alberto had begun its assault on parts of North Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Torrential rains pushed rivers in central Georgia to dangerously high levels. Floodwaters forced thousands of people to flee their homes, but many were unable to escape deadly situations. Rainfall totals reached record levels. Americus, Georgia, measured more than 21 inches, while Macon had just over 10. The remnants of Alberto lingered over the Southeast for more than a week. The rain finally ended on July 7th, but river flooding continued from Albany down to the Florida Panhandle.
We have never had a natural disaster in the history of Georgia where so many lives have been touched and where it is going to be so costly.
More than 30 Georgia counties were declared federal disaster areas. President Clinton promised more than $60 million in aid. Overall, Alberto claimed 30 lives. Damage totaled $500 million.
People in Florida and Georgia were very concerned when Tropical Storm Beryl developed out in the Gulf of Mexico. They were just in the process still of trying to recover from the devastating floods, and here comes another tropical storm.
On August 15th, Beryl made landfall near Panama City.
It's blowing in right off the Gulf, which is behind me now, and this particular house is sitting right out over the water.
Onshore winds produced coastal flooding between Apalachicola and Cedar Key. Much of the shoreline took a battering. While heavy rain caused flooding in some parts of Florida and Georgia, the storm moved quickly. Many areas still recovering from Alberto's wrath were spared. Severe weather broke out along Beryl's path as it reached the mid-Atlantic states. 23 tornadoes touched down in South Carolina alone. Damage from Beryl totaled $75 million.
Alberto and Beryl turned out to be the deadliest and most costly storms of the entire tropical season. However, they weren't the only significant or unusual tropical occurrences of the year.
From Alberto to Gordon, 1994's Atlantic hurricane season was unusual from beginning to end. The year only had 7 named storms, 3 became hurricanes, 2 occurred in November. Hurricane season in the eastern Pacific was considered average, but even so, it was a record setter.
Well, what was unusual and unprecedented was the strength of a number of the Pacific hurricanes.
Hurricanes Amelia, Gilma, and John all reached Category 5 strength. All threatened the Hawaiian Islands. In July, Amelia's well-defined eye was spotted by Space Shuttle Columbia. Amelia brought only minor damage to the islands. In early August, Hurricane John forced the evacuation of Johnston Island, 800 miles west of Hawaii.
It lasted longer than any tropical system of record, either in the Atlantic or the Pacific, anywhere in the world, as a matter of fact. It was on the map altogether for about 31 days.
During '94, only 3 Atlantic tropical cyclones affected the U.S. Tropical storms Alberto and Beryl started off the season, bringing serious flooding to parts of Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Hurricane Chris formed in mid-August. Tropical storms Debbie and Ernesto developed in September. Oddly, no hurricanes occurred in October, but November had 2. Florence was the first and the strongest. Gordon challenged forecasters from the start. As a tropical storm, Gordon's torrential rains caused flooding and mudslides in Haiti. An estimated 2,000 people died. On November 14th, even with the storm's center over 200 miles away, strong winds, high surf, and torrential rains buffeted South Florida's coastline. After entering the Gulf of Mexico, Gordon took a turn and crossed over the Florida peninsula, spawning several tornadoes. Hundreds were left homeless. Rain and flooding cost the Sunshine State over $300 million in crop losses. Gordon was officially designated a hurricane on the 17th as it re-entered the Atlantic and headed toward North Carolina's Outer Banks. The center moved within 80 miles of the coast. Howling winds and crashing waves smashed already condemned houses at Kitty Hawk Beach. Gordon made a U-turn, moved south, and finally dissipated on the 21st as it again headed over Florida.
We had seldom, if ever, seen that many twists and turns on one hurricane.
While the number of storms for 1994's Atlantic hurricane season was below normal, those storms did kill more than 2,000 people and caused damage totaling nearly $250 million. Brad Edwards, The Weather Channel.
From the March blizzard to the Mississippi floods and western wildfires, 1993 was marked by a number of weather superlatives. Not to be outdone, 1994 was nearly as active. A record number of tornadoes and yet another bout of western wildfires kept us all on our toes. I'm Dennis Smith. As always, thank you for joining us on this edition of Exposures.
Has there ever been a storm to compare? From Florida all the way up the East Coast, a strange storm system spawned tornadoes and dumped tons of snow from the Northeast to the Deep South. Superstorm 93, now for your video library. A 45-minute video memory you'll want to share with your family for years to come. See the Weather Channel exploration of the storm's unusual meteorology. Why the death toll was so surprisingly high. Plus, what happened in communities that found themselves in the storm-ravaged path. Incredible scenes of the deadly storm surge. Winter destruction that denied life-saving aid. The unforgettable story of Superstorm 93 can now be yours for only $14.95. Order this remarkable edition to your home video library collection now. Charge by phone by calling 1-800-626-9477 and have your credit card ready. Or you can send a check or money order to the address shown on your screen. But for faster service, call 1-800-626-9477. Call now.
Sun, snow, rain, or fog. Know what to expect. Just 95 cents a minute. Dial 1-900-WEATHER and connect.
Youth, when there are no worries. Just playing chase, wrestling, and taking lots of naps. When all that really matters is having fun. From the creator of the award-winning television series Wild America comes a home video unlike anything you've ever seen. These are nature's precious moments, available now as a special 1-hour home video. It is not available in stores. Call this toll-free number now and get precious moments for just $19.95. Order now and you'll also receive The Beauty of Butterflies absolutely free. That's right, both of these extraordinary programs are yours for just $19.95. Call now.
For rush delivery, get your credit card ready and call 1-800-544-6665. That's 1-800-544-6665. Or send your check or money order to the address on your screen. Call now.